Okay, these are the topics we want to cover. Okay, hopefully we'll be able to cover today. So the first thing is adjunct. We've been talking about adjunct for some time now, but today definitely we'd like to cover every type of adjuncts. Okay, so let's look at this material. This is Eggins and Slate 1, okay, chapter 3. Please turn to page 82. Okay. So adjuncts are extra elements. Okay. When we look at a clause, in terms of grammatical elements, okay, or grammatical functions, we can divide clause into several components, right? And the most important components are subject, finite, and predicator, and complements. Okay, but these components will only give us, the basic skeleton. Okay, what we call skeleton. This might not be a good choice of the term, but we use this term skeleton. Okay, the skeleton of a clause. Okay, just to give us an idea that there are some certain important content missing, okay? And to supply more content to the skeleton, we use adjuncts, okay? We use adjuncts. But one thing, okay, one characteristic of this framework, what we are doing in this course is we view language, okay? We view language as a tool for communication, okay, a tool of communication, but that means we deal with spoken language, okay, spoken language, and not just sentences or clauses, okay. Clause is the term we use for sentences, okay. Not just clauses, but also sequences of clauses, and which are called discourse. Okay, so our viewpoint is sequence of clauses, okay, which is called discourse. If you just use one sentence, okay, one clause, there's not much you can do. Okay, but if you use a number of clauses and just those clauses are not just gathered together, okay, haphazardly without any plan, but the sequence of clauses we are looking at, the sequences of clauses we are looking at are gathered together to make texts, okay, to make texts, okay. So that means texts we are discussing, okay, have certain purposes, okay, purposes or goals, okay, we want to achieve by using those texts, okay. So we have texts and which have purposes and goals, okay. Oops. So the difference between viewing grammar, okay, as analysis of sentence structures, okay, analysis of sentence structures, okay, that's what you experienced in your high school days, okay, when students learn English grammar. Well, their focus is usually on the structure, okay, of sentences. But for grammar, okay, when we talk about grammar for spoken English, okay, spoken English, the purpose is not so much about structure, but more about things we do, okay? Things we do using language, okay? Using language and concrete forms of language we encounter in spoken English or any spoken language is texts, okay? Texts, okay? Sequences, clauses, and texts have purposes and goals, right? Okay, so in order to achieve some very concrete purpose, okay, we build clauses according to this format, but at present, without adjuncts, okay, we may not be able to say many things we want to do. Why? Because we are viewing language from three different perspectives, okay, not just one, okay, not just the structure, okay, the viewpoint of structure, but also we are viewing language from three different perspectives. They are clause as representation. Do you remember what we do from this perspective? Okay, in this perspective, okay, clauses are somewhat like pictures. Okay, somewhat like pictures. Okay, we express how we look at the world surrounding us. Okay, we kind of draw, okay, pictures of the world as we look at it. Okay, as we look at it. Okay, so language can be used for that purpose. Just like we use paint and brushes, okay, paint and brushes to draw pictures. We use words, okay, words, and we combine words into phrases, and phrases into clauses, and then clauses into text. Okay, by using those elements, okay, those elements, we can draw a picture of the world as we look at it, okay, as we look at it, okay. So that's one perspective. But more important function of language is we use language to interact with other people, right? We use language mainly for the purpose of associating with other people, okay? We want to make friends with other people, right? Or we want to do business with other people, okay? So that's the aspect of interaction. So from that perspective, we would use the phrase clause as exchange, okay? Exchange. So you give something, okay? You give some information, but you also demand some information from other people, right? Okay, so that's our second perspective. Okay, our third perspective is clause as message. Okay, and this is probably, this perspective reflects something very fundamental about language. Okay, why have humans come to develop this tool? Okay, humans live in society, right? Humans live in different sizes of groups. Okay, and in those groups, okay, unlike many other animals, there are many other social animals, like, even insects are, some of them are social, like ants and bees, okay? And according to some recent studies, okay, even insects seem to have some means of communication, okay? And many of us probably heard about, language, the language used by honeybees, right? Honeybees, okay? And so even insects might have language, and many animals also use voice, okay? Like birds. Okay, birds use voice to communicate with each other. Okay, but unlike any other animal species, the use of language, the use of language for humans is, very different, right? Okay, we do many things, not just one thing. Okay, not just one thing like locating the place, where you can find food. Okay, so honeybees use language probably to inform, other, members of the colony. Okay, of the location of the flowers. Okay, flowers. Okay, and they are the sources of their food, right? So so their language is restricted to certain very specific purposes, but human language is used for many different purposes. Okay, sometimes we use language just to entertain others, right? Just to entertain others. Okay, and also we use language to educate young people. Okay, probably that's something other animals cannot do. Okay, and so Clause's message probably focus on that aspect of using language. That is, you manipulate the attention of your colleagues. Okay, you manipulate the attention of your colleagues. Okay. Okay, so this is how language is used. I'm using language for this purpose right now, right? Okay, so on purpose, okay, I deliberately say things, okay, which might somehow draw your attention, okay? So something which might be interesting to you, okay? So that way, okay, you'll pay more attention to what I'm talking about, okay? So from time to time, I use words, okay, which might catch your attention, right? Okay, so that's one perspective of viewing at language, okay? And we will spend some time on this topic, okay, shortly, okay, shortly. But right now, so we have just confirmed that there are 3 different perspectives, okay? We can look at language. We can look at language. And that's one characteristic of this kind of course, that is course on grammar for spoken language, spoken English, okay? Now, adjuncts corresponding to these 3 perspectives can also be divided into 3 kinds of adjuncts, okay? So corresponding to Clause's representation, we have adjuncts called circumstantial adjuncts, okay? Circumstantial adjuncts. Circumstantial adjuncts. Oops. Okay? And for this, the best reference we have, okay, the best reference we have is that handout, okay, with lots of tables, okay. So this is Halliday and Matheson 1, okay, and the table. Table 528, okay, table 528 will give you a whole list, a complete list of circumstantial adjuncts in English. Okay, so this is given, okay, as a list in in this table. Okay, so the list in this table on this table, okay, is a complete list of circumstantial adjuncts in English. Okay, and as to the classification, the whole table, the whole list is classified into 4 categories. Okay, 4 categories: enhancing, extending, elaborating, and projection. Okay? And by now, I believe you are familiar with these 4 terms, right? We have just started to look at these 4 categories: enhancing, extending, elaborating, projection. But these are the, actually these reflect 2 fundamental principles, okay, by which we can expand our expressions, okay? So another way of saying the same thing is, when you look at a text, there are expressions, okay? But you clearly identify, certain parts in this text are dependent on each other, right? Okay? So things like the boy who solved this problem, okay, was my brother. Okay? So now if you look at this, you find the boy as the subject, was the verb, my brother, complement, but the skeleton is expanded by using this, okay? And that means, this part, okay, this expression and this expression are dependent on each other, right? Dependent on each other, okay? So some expressions are dependent on each other, okay? So we find this is phenomena of interdependence between expressions, interdependence. Okay. And by depending on each other, expressions can grow, okay? Can grow indefinitely and ultimately into a full-fledged text, okay? And for this, we will use 2 fundamental principles. One, expansion, okay, which includes 3 sub-principles: elaboration, extension, and enhancement. Okay? And the second principle, major principle, is called projection. Okay, now we know, okay, I believe, a more definite picture of the direction we are heading, right? So we'd like to explain how we develop our text in terms of those 2 fundamental principles, okay, which apply, okay, to every level of language, okay, not just sentences, okay, not just clauses, but also phrases, words, and even within words we find the same principle. So that's how language is, somehow organized, okay? So they seem to be a very fundamental, very fundamental, but very fundamental principles, okay, in language, because we can explain how separate expressions can depend on each other to form, a bigger expression, okay, a larger expression, okay, which somehow mean more, okay, and which mean a coherent thing, okay, not 2 separate things, but one coherent things out of two separate meanings. Okay, so that movement from smaller separate meanings to larger coherent meanings. Okay, larger from separate meanings to larger coherent meanings. Okay, we constantly seem to use those two principles. Okay, now back to the table. Well, we don't go over this table, okay, this time, okay, because we have another time for doing this. And the second type of adjuncts are called interpersonal adjuncts. Adjuncts. Okay, again, we have a number of very informative tables in this handout. The first one is table 47 on the first sheet. Okay, that's adverbs serving as mood adjuncts of temporality. Okay, the second table is table 48, adverbs serving as mood adjuncts of modality. Okay, the third one is called adverbs serving as mood adjuncts of intensity. Okay, now compare these three tables with our previous table, table 528, and what do you notice? Okay, I believe we notice, okay, if you compare table 528 with these three tables which I just mentioned, 47, 48, 49, okay, I strongly believe, okay, that we notice one thing, okay, which has to do with how we build a clause. Okay, when we build up a clause, okay, the first thing we do is to gather components, okay, which are things like these, okay, things like this. But things like these correspond to this picture of looking at, I don't know, this is not just about the structure of a clause, but how we carve out, okay? So we are now talking about, how we perceive the external world, okay? The external world surrounding us. Okay, so when we express something in language, the first thing we do is to have an idea, okay? And to have an idea about the world surrounding us, okay, the external world. Okay, we have to somehow, carve out. Okay, so that's the phrase I used, carving out. Okay, a portion of the world, okay, a portion of the world, which, okay, we want to express or we want to turn into words. Okay, so the image is something like this. Okay, so there's this, I don't know how to. So there's this word. Okay. We just carve out portion of this, okay? And if this carving out was successful, okay, or is successful, okay, we can divide this part okay, into processes and participants and also circumstantials or circumstances. Okay, so let me give you one example sentence, okay, and which we have met already a number of times. Okay, John. Okay, this is one component. Okay, probably this is a participant, right? Kissed, another component carved out, from the world surrounding us. Okay, and Mary, probably another participant. Okay, so this is the participant. This is one participant. This is the process. Okay, and then another participant. Okay, and to add more substance to this information, we add circumstantials. Okay, on the cheek. Okay, so this also needs some comment, but probably we have to put this off, till some other time. But, just one brief comment. This on is some kind of mini process, okay, or micro process. Okay, let's call this micro process. Okay, so definitely, if somebody said this clause, John kissed Mary on the cheek, okay, and immediately we get this image, okay, that John's lips, okay, moves toward and touches Mary's cheek, right? Okay, so in that sense, this on clearly, visualize some kind of process, okay, a particular kind of process, because it has many meanings, but in each clause it has one definite meaning, right? So this on is on of touching, okay? So John kissed Mary on the cheek, and as soon as we hear the word on, okay, we visualize this scene that, where John's lips, moves toward and touches Mary's cheek, right? Okay? So, and in the, on the platform, again, this on, and this time this on is on of location. And here, the image we get from this microprocess, okay, microprocess, is, you somehow place these participants, okay, are in a scene, okay, so this was an event, okay, which took place somewhere, okay, so that somewhere is the scene of the event, right? But this scene of event hasn't been specified up to this point in the expression, okay? But if at the time, okay, the moment you add the last circumstantial on the platform, okay, suddenly this scene becomes, very concrete, okay? It takes the form of a platform, okay, of a station, okay? So you have lots of things which I cannot draw, okay? Okay? But, on the platform, you're supposed to have certain things, right? So suddenly you get this image by hearing these three words on the platform, okay? So in that sense, these prepositions are somewhat like predicators, okay? Predicators, verbs, okay? And they give you a kind of more vivid pictures, okay, vivid pictures of the process, okay, going on, okay, the process going on. So this is how we make an image, okay, make an image of an event, okay, make an image of an event, okay, by carving out portion of the word. Now, but this part of, the process of turning your idea into language, okay, turning your idea into language, has only dealt with what's happening in the external world, okay, in the external world, okay. But in language, as we have already seen, okay, we also want to express, ourselves, okay, okay. We want to express ourselves, okay. And now that's probably one word which describes this situation is intrusion. So this is the situation we are going to look at under the heading of interpersonal adjuncts. Okay, interpersonal adjuncts allow us to do this. Okay, interpersonal adjuncts will allow us to do this. Okay, so let me just draw another picture. Okay, so suppose this is a sentence, okay, like that one, okay. This reflects what's happening in the world, probably fairly accurately, okay. Probably fairly accurately reflects what's happening in the world, okay. What's happening in the world, but unfortunately, it doesn't reflect what's happening inside the mind of the speaker, okay. So there are two kinds of things. What's happening in the world around us, okay, that's one kind of thing we want to express. But another kind of thing we want to express is what's happening in our mind, okay, as a speaker, okay. As a speaker, okay, we constantly make judgments, okay? We constantly make judgments, okay? And we pass judgments on people, okay? Things, entities, or ideas, right? So we pass judgments. Judgments. We pass judgments on many things, entities, like people and ideas, okay, like ideas, like somebody's opinion, okay, and many other things, okay, and there should be some means to express these things as well as these things, okay, and one way of doing this, okay, there are many other, okay, one way of expressing what's happening in our mind as a speaker, that is our judgments, okay, is to use these adverbs, okay, interpersonal adjuncts, okay, and when we first saw this table, okay, the first table, eventually, soon, once, just, or still, already, no longer, not yet, okay, I think we noticed this fact that, okay, these words are chosen, okay, depending on the, the view of the speaker, okay, so some speaker might find, okay, some event, okay, the coming of the letter from John, okay, the arriving of the letter from John, okay, find it, quite soon or soon enough, okay, but from other speakers' viewpoint, okay, the letter arrived, okay, eventually, at long last, okay. So the choice of these adverbs, eventually or soon, totally depends on the view of the speaker, okay, view of the speaker, okay. So that's one sense of, intrusion of the speaker or speaker's judgment into the clause, okay. Now, the table we want to look at today is the last table of this category, which is found on that, the next sheet. You turn over the sheet and you find this table 410, okay, 410. And these are some of the, difficult words, okay, for students to handle, okay. For learners of English, these are the words which are, some of the most difficult ones to handle, okay, in your speech, right? Because these are the ones which directly reflects. These are the ones which directly reflect, okay, how you view, okay, how you look at the situation, okay. So, for example, if you want to somehow express your opinion on this event, okay, suppose you added naturally, John kissed Mary on the cheek on the platform. Okay, so what's, something changes, right? Naturally, John kissed Mary on the cheek on the platform. Okay, so what kind of change do you have, okay, by adding this naturally? Or if you added no doubt, okay, no doubt John kissed Mary on the cheek on the platform, then we are, the hearer, okay, the listener is not so sure whether or not this event, okay, really took place, right? Okay, so by adding these adverbs, the speaker expresses how he or she looks at the information, okay, the information, right? Okay. Now, I have given, okay, lots of examples in this handout of, how we use these adverbs, okay, and they are all found in actual conversation, okay. These are the interviews, okay, interviews on, many of them are scientific topics, but some of them are on legal topics, okay, but these are real language, real conversation, and in these, in these sentences, okay, you find these words, okay, interpersonal adjuncts actually used, okay, and so we will have, I'm sure we have some time, okay, to look at some of the interesting examples, okay, from this handout, okay, some other time. But for today, okay, we just want to look at and confirm this fact that by using these words, we can add, okay, many many different opinions, okay, opinions on the information, okay, given by the sentence. Okay, let me just give you a very rough idea about how the table is organized. Okay, the table is divided into two parts. The first part is called propositional, okay, propositional. And the second part is called speech functional, okay, propositional and speech functional, okay. And the idea is this, okay? You have the part of the clause which reflects what's going on in the word alone, okay? So this is just a picture of the word, okay? And to this description, okay, this is something called proposition, right? Proposition, okay? Okay, we made distinction between proposition and proposals. Okay, proposals. Okay. So this is a proposition, and to this proposition, you somehow insert, okay, your opinion. Okay, inserting your opinion. Okay, and that's something called the intrusion of the speaker. Okay, so somehow we want to make yourself visible in the clause. Make yourself visible in the clause. Okay? And there are probably, again, this part is divided into, two subclasses, on whole and on subject. Okay? On whole and on subject. Okay? So, propositional interpersonal adjuncts are divided into those dealing with the whole proposition, okay, and those just dealing with the subject, okay, those dealing with the subject, okay. So let me. Okay. Okay. How do you find these two examples? Okay. Do you think they are clear enough to illustrate the point we are studying? Naturally, John kissed Mary on the cheek on the platform. This naturally indicates the speaker's attitude, okay, attitude to the proposition, okay. So this event of John's kissing was to the speaker something very natural, okay, thinking about the relationship between them, okay. At that point, okay, probably when they were about to depart, when they were about to say goodbye, okay, to each other, naturally John kissed Mary. Okay, John kissed Mary. Okay, so that was the natural thing he did. Okay, or since the speaker didn't have enough information or definite information. Okay. He is kind of making a guess, okay, and no doubt, thinking of the relationship between the two, no doubt John kissed Mary at that point, okay. So this is somehow indicating, the lack of knowledge, okay, lack of definite knowledge, okay, no doubt, okay, and other things you can do is unsurprisingly. Okay, so I'm not surprised by this fact, okay, or by this event. That's unsurprisingly, John kissed Mary. Okay, or if you want to say, that you were surprised, then you would say, to my surprise. Okay, to my surprise. Okay, to my surprise. Okay, or unexpectedly. Unexpectedly. Okay, so these words and phrase, okay, all indicate the speaker's attitude. Okay, attitude, something like lack of knowledge or confidence. Okay, lack of knowledge and degree of confidence. Okay, so these are about the whole proposition, But if you take a different, okay, so the second kind is, the focus is just on subject. Okay, although you use a similar adverbs, the focus is just on the subject, like wisely. Okay, wisely, John kissed Mary on the cheek on the platform. Okay, and this means, John's act. Okay, John's act of kissing was something wise. Okay, for him to do. Okay, so John wisely kissed Mary on the cheek on the platform. So this is the speaker's assessment, okay? Because, at that point, Mary was not so sure about how John felt toward her, okay? So John, showed, how he felt by kissing her, okay? So wisely, okay? So John's move was wise at that point. So that's how the speaker judges, assesses the situation, right? But this time, it's not about kissing, but, it's about John, okay? It was wise of John, okay? It was wise of John, okay, to have kissed Mary at that point, right? Okay, so this is, the proposition, interpersonal adjuncts in this category, both, dealing with the whole proposition and dealing with the subject, okay, both express the speaker's attitude, judgment, okay, but, the second group, those dealing with subject, okay, is specifically making comment on the subject, okay, making comment on the subject, right? And the negative version of this is foolishly, okay? Foolishly, John kissed Mary, okay? Foolishly, John kissed Mary, okay? It was foolish of him to do that, okay? And then rightly, correctly, justifiably, this is also about the subject, but the judgment is more about morality, okay? So, justifiably. And in this kind of situation, okay, I don't think you would usually use justifiably, but, it's kind of exaggeration. It's a kind of exaggeration, but sometimes, okay, to have some kind of comical effect, people might say something like, oh, justifiably, John kissed Mary on the cheek on the platform, okay, justifiably, okay? So this move was justifiable, okay? So it's morally acceptable, okay, morally acceptable on the part of John, okay? The second group is speech functional, okay, speech functional. These are specifically about the mode of communication between the speaker and the hearer. Okay, these are specifically indicating the mode of communication. Okay, the mode of communication. Okay, let me just give you one or two very clear examples. Okay. Frankly, okay, okay, frankly, I think we were wrong. Okay, frankly. Now, frankly, this is not about the proposition. Okay, there's nothing frank about the proposition itself. I think we were wrong. This is an opinion. Okay. What is frank? Okay, what is frank about this situation is, okay, how the speaker communicates this information to the hearer. Okay, so one way of paraphrasing this adverb is I tell you, or I'll tell you frankly. Okay, I'll tell you frankly. Okay, so between you and me. Okay, just between you and me, I'll tell you frankly. I think we were wrong. Okay? Since this is only about the mode of communication, okay, if the subject changes, the speaker changes, then the meaning reverses. Okay? Frankly, do you think we were wrong? Okay. Frankly, do you think we were wrong? And this means, tell me frankly, right? So this is, will you tell me frankly? Okay. So now, who's going to be frank is not the speaker, but the listener. Okay. So the person who's going to be frank this time is the hearer, not the speaker. Okay? So all these words are about how he is communicating. Okay? So if you say generally, okay, and in this kind of lecture, the teacher, okay, the instructor often uses this word generally, right? Generally. Okay? Generally. Okay, and this means I'm speaking in general terms. Okay, general terms. So I'm just ignoring concrete details. Okay, specific details. Okay, so this is I'm now telling. Okay, I'm telling in general terms. Okay, in general terms. Okay, so these are the interpersonal adjuncts. Okay, interpersonal adjuncts. And again, well, let me remind you of this. These are intrusions of the speaker. Okay, intrusions of the speaker into the clause. Okay, so from, at many points, okay, in many places of the clause, there are, okay, room. There is room for, doing this, showing yourself, okay, making yourself felt in the clause, okay, making yourself heard in the clause, okay. So usually it's at the beginning or right after the subject, but sometimes at the end, okay, at the end. For example, to be sure, okay, to be sure. Okay, so this phrase is often used at the end of a clause, okay, and to show that that you are sure about the information, okay. So you can place, okay, or you can put your judgment in these different places, okay, and that's possible because you use adverbs, okay, because you use adverbs, okay. So adverbs can be found, okay, can occur in many places in the clause. So that's why adverbs are chosen as interpersonal adjuncts, okay, most of the time. But there's another kind of expressions which allows you to do this, okay, intrusion of the speaker, and that's called modals, okay, modals, 助動詞, okay, 助動詞, okay, and this is just to give you a preview of what's coming, okay, but please look at. Now we are going to look at chapter 3 of Eggins and Slate. Okay, please look at page 98. Okay, we find chapter 3.8, section 3.8. Okay, section 3.8 on the page. Okay, so now before going to the last kind of adjunct, let me just give you some preview of modality. Okay, modality is another way of intruding yourself on the on the information of the clause. Okay, intruding yourself. Maybe intruding yourself into the clause, okay, intruding yourself that is putting yourself, okay, in the clause so that your presence is felt in the clause, okay, your presence, okay. So this is one way of making your presence, the speaker's presence, felt, right? Make your speaker's presence presence felt. Right? So making your presence felt, okay? And adverbs, okay? Most of the time, adverbs do the work, okay? Most of the time. But another category of expressions, okay, which we use, okay, belongs to this, okay, modality, and specifically modals. Okay, modality is an abstract category called yoso. Okay, specific expressions, a category of specific expressions. One of them is modals, 助動詞. Okay, and these are the kinds of meaning. Okay? The kinds of meaning you can express using modality are the following. Okay? Four of them. The most important one is called epistemic. Okay? Epistemic means having to do with knowledge, but knowledge about the truth, okay, about the truth of the situation, okay. So another word to express the same concept is possibility. So words like can, may, okay, he may well be, the store may well be open today. That's possibility, right? The store, knowledge about the truth. Okay, the store may well be open today. Okay, so may expresses possibility, but may can also express many other things. So you strengthen this meaning by adding an adverb. So this is, what happens in conversation quite often. Okay, because modals are ambiguous. Okay, they have at least 4 different meanings, ambiguous. Okay, most of them. Okay, so in order to make the intended meaning clear, you add an adverb. Okay, so this time, if you don't have well, okay, the store may be open. This can be a permission as well. Okay, permission as well. And that kind of meaning is called deontic. Deontic. Okay? A more usual word is obligation. Obligation. Okay? So the store may be open today. Okay? So this can be permission, right? Permission. Okay? 교과. Okay? Permission. Okay? So in order to make, in order to specify, okay, one of the 2 possibilities, it's either possibility or permission, okay. In order to choose the possibility meaning, you add well, okay. The store may well be open today, okay. So that's something you do, okay. The other 2 meanings are, okay, we have epistemic, deontic, and we have, inclination. Okay, unfortunately, we don't have any, any word of this kind, like, Latin or Greek origin, okay, for this category, inclination. Okay, and the last word is capability. Capability. Okay, so this is capability is can. Okay, so he can ride a bicycle. Okay, inclination is be willing to do. Okay, so if you will. Okay, if you will. Okay, if you will. If you add this phrase quite often, if you will, so that means if you are willing to do, okay, if you're willing to, okay. But there are many others, okay. So this is another way of expressing your judgment, right? Expressing your judgment. But for modality, if we find something different from the other interpersonal adjuncts, okay, they are more central. Okay, they are more central as a component of a clause. Okay, because their place in the clause is more central, right? You find modals in the center of a clause. Usually, you find modals right after. So this is the place for modals. Okay, so that's why in English grammar we spend a lot of time, okay, an enormous amount of time discussing this subject, how we use modals, because virtually, okay, almost all sentences come with modals, right? Modals. Okay, so we constantly making ourselves, making our presence felt in the clause by inserting modals in the clause. Okay, so that's what we are going to study when we come to this part of the chapter, Okay, back to kinds of adjuncts. Okay, kinds of adjuncts. The last kind is called textual adjuncts. Okay, textual adjuncts. Textual adjuncts. Okay. Oh, there are a few more categories of interpersonal adjuncts. Okay, which are. Please look at page 82, okay, of chapter 3. Page 82 of chapter 3, okay? Besides adverbs expressing your opinion or your judgment, okay, which we have seen, okay, right just now, okay? So there are other interpersonal expressions, okay, interpersonal expressions. Okay, one is vocatives. Vocatives do not describe the external world. Vocatives, okay? So you call somebody's name in your sentence. John, do you know this? Okay, John, do you have time today? Okay, so these are called the vocatives. And this is a kind of expression, okay, for interactional purposes, right? So vocatives is another interpersonal adjunct. Why do we use vocatives? Okay, in order to indicate the intimacy, okay, intimacy between the speaker and the listener, right? Or the one who is called, okay? The one who is called, okay? So interpersonal adjunct of this kind, vocatives, is used, okay? In order to indicate the intimacy, okay, between the speaker and the person who is called, okay? And then you have, let's see. Yeah, that's it. Okay, that's it. Okay. Now the last category is called textual adjuncts. Okay, and this is textual adjuncts belong to the last perspective, that is close as message. Close as message. Okay, and close as message concerns mostly or mainly how to manipulate, the listener's attention. Okay, how to manipulate the listener's attention, okay? Listener's attention. Okay? And not just when we speak, but also when we write, this is something very important to consider, because if you don't choose the right expression at the beginning, okay? The phrases, the words at the beginning of a sentence, okay, they carry a very specific, responsibility, okay? So at the beginning of a clause, you choose the right expression, okay, to start the whole sentence, okay? And this place is called theme, okay? Theme of the clause. Theme of the clause. Okay? And so if you want to talk about somebody, okay, you place that person here, okay? That person, okay? The person you want to talk about. John, okay? But if you want to talk about something special which happened yesterday, okay, you would put yesterday at the beginning, right? So you want to draw the listener's attention, okay, to this concept, okay? That is, you get the listener ready for the information, okay, which comes up, which is coming up, okay, in the rest of the sentence, right? In the rest of the sentence, okay. So you first draw the listener's attention to the right entity, okay, the right entity, okay. So the choice of expressions for this place called theme is very important, okay. And well, we come back to this, but now there are groups of words. I think 3 of them. Oh, yeah, 3 of them. Okay, which are specifically for the manipulation of the listener's attention. Okay, now we are looking at page 83. The first kind is called conjunctive adjuncts. Conjunctive adjuncts. Okay, conjunctive adjuncts has this purpose. Okay, now we are talking about drawing the listener's attention to the right entity. Okay, to the right entity. Conjunctive adjuncts are used to connect the current clause, okay, the current clause, that is present clause, okay, the clause which the speaker is going to say, okay, okay, that's the current clause, with prior talk, that is usually with the previous clause, okay, but not necessarily. Sometimes you connect the current clause with somewhere in prior talk, okay, not necessarily with the previous clause, but somewhere. But anyway, the point is, okay, in order to connect the present clause with something which has already, passed, okay, which has already been processed, okay, you use this conjunctive adjunct, okay, conjunctive adjunct, okay, and if the connection is smooth, okay, the current clause gives information in the same direction, okay, in the same direction as previous talk, you would use and, right? Okay, and if you want to emphasize that the present clause is what happens next, okay, next to what was described before, you would use then. Okay? And if you want to indicate that the present clause, current clause is, looking in the opposite direction, okay, in the opposite direction, not the same direction, but the opposite direction, you would use but. Okay, this is true, but. Okay, and so this is kind of traffic signals, right? Traffic signals. Okay, the speaker shows these, gives traffic signals or provides these traffic signals for the benefit of the listener, okay, so that the listener can process the following information smoothly, okay. So when the speaker says but, okay, he's signaling that the next information is in the opposite direction to what has been met before, right? Okay, and then the next category is called continuity adjuncts. Okay, continuity adjuncts. Okay, continuity adjuncts again this is somewhat different from actively indicating the direction the listener is supposed to look, but it's more about holding the floor. Okay, holding. Continuity. No, sorry. I made a mistake. Okay, this is right. Okay, this is continuity is not indicating a particular direction, but just indicating continuity, which means, we are still in the process, in the middle of discussing the same subject. So that's the meaning of continuity. Okay? So if somebody says, well, this means that the speaker is still going to talk about the same subject, okay? But he doesn't put forward his opinion, immediately, okay, right away. Okay, so he might take some time, but he's going to put forward his opinion, okay, maybe shortly. So this is to somehow, take time, to take time. Okay, so this is continuity, meaning that showing that that the speaker is continuing the same subject, But there's the last kind called holding adjunct. Okay, holding adjunct. Okay, and this one is different from words like well, okay, which doesn't give the information, crucial information immediately, but still intending to give the information, probably shortly. But holding adjunct is used to just hold the floor. Okay? Unless the speaker said something, somebody else might, take the floor, right? Okay? So in order not to give away, the floor, that is the right to speak, okay, the speaker said something, let's, please look at the example. Okay, the example is So while the speaker is, giving some noise, giving out some noise like nobody else can get in, right? Get in and start talking, right? And so this is called holding adjunct. Okay, so again, these are not about explicitly signaling the direction of the information, but still they are used to indicate the speaker's intention. So the last category is the speaker's intention to continue as the speaker, right? To continue to talk as the speaker. Okay? The continuity adjunct is the speaker's intention to discuss the same subject. Okay? And conjunctive adjunct is used to signal the direction of the information, okay? Whether it is in the same direction or the opposite direction. Okay? So these are the adjuncts. Okay? And today the first schedule was to review these things. Okay, unfortunately, we ran out of time, but next time, I think we can continue from this subject. Okay, from this subject. Okay, but we covered many things today. Okay, thank you very much. And this is it.